I'd like to welcome everyone on this lovely, bright and sunny Sunday morning. I'm from Sweden. I live in the south of Sweden, and you can see the sun shining through the window here. I'm very excited to moderate this discussion that we have this morning called Purpose-Driven Entrepreneurship Through a Global Lens. We have a fantastic lineup of panelists here that you can see on the screen already. Very excited to have this discussion on a very important topic that is also close to my heart. I can just say as well, I can see some of you are already saying in the chat where you're from and your names, and that's great. If you all want to do that, we can find out who's in the session, and you can also put questions in the chat there, and we can see if we can answer some of them later on, depending on how the discussion goes. So do feel free to put in some comments there. My name is Anna Clark. I'm president at Women at EIT. We are a community who are supporting more women to be involved and engaged in the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem in Europe. And I'm very happy to be here, invited to moderate this session. Now, I'll just let the speakers introduce themselves because they can pronounce their names much better than I can. Definitely tell a little bit about who you are, but also maybe give some quick highlights about the relation to the overall theme of this conference, which is sustainability in a post-pandemic workplace. So we'll start with you, Anka. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Anna. Lovely to see you again after a while. Thank you for the great introduction. Indeed, this is a very important discussion and quite highly related with piece of the work of each of us. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm the EIT Alumni President. EIT, the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, for those who don't know exactly what EIT is. And by training, I'm a sociologist, a health economist, and a thought leader in strategic development, global health and innovation governance. Happy to be here with you and answer all your questions, Anna.
Thank you very much, Anka. We'll move on to Selena.
Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here with you today with Anka, Christina, and Anna. I am environmental scientist, but nowadays I'm studying as a PhD candidate in the University of Bologna as a sociologist, and I'm studying behavioral change and policy on climate change. And I'm super happy to be here also because I get to represent my EIT part, which is a Climate Kick, and I'm part of the board of the Alumni EIT Climate Kick. So happy to be here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And last but not least, Christina.
Hello, everyone from Spain. Very sunny today, although this week hasn't been that sunny. I'm Christina, and I'm aeronautical engineer, but I'm applying my knowledge, in fact, in the shipping industry by developing and deploying technologies to make it more sustainable.
Great. Thank you. You're all very welcome. What a brilliant lineup of panelists we have today. And I just mentioned EIT alumni a couple of times. Just quickly, who are EIT alumni? I'd like to hear from all of you because you come from different perspectives. We'll start with Anka.
That's a great question, Anna. So I'm trying to make it brief and very clear. Let's hope I will succeed in that. So the EIT alumni are change makers and future decision makers, how I like to call it. However, the EIT alumni as a community per se is the leading cross-sectoral network of EIT graduates, innovators, and entrepreneurs. We are engaging over 14,000 young leaders with bright minds and big hearts for humanity and for our planet, if you ask me, who aim to tackle global changes and global challenges through groundbreaking technologies. At EIT Alumni, we want to make sure that purpose-driven, life-changing innovations leave the labs and enter the markets, thus making an impact and changing the world for the better sooner rather than later.
High ambitions, changing the world. Yes, that's where we start. Selena, what about you? Who are EIT alumni?
Yeah, I start my path to be an alumni in 2020 and 19 actually as a Climate Kick alumni. And thanks to this community, I got to know a lot of new innovation technology and frameworks, and how to develop a real sustainable and game changer society, tackling climate change issues, of course, because it's my main topic. But actually, our community is a community of young professionals that exchange knowledge and expertise to develop a brilliant and more powerful future for everyone. So yeah, this is what I love about the community.
That's brilliant. And Christina, we'll take that one for you as well.
I think that's very aligned with Celine. I come from the EIT Climate Geek, so I'm very focused on climate impact. And what I do is, as an entrepreneur, I've been involved in EIT in several programs, and I convert the knowledge coming from Celine's part into new business creation. So I foster this innovation, and I deliver these solutions to the global challenges like Anka mentioned.
Mm-hmm. That's brilliant. So it's a lot about taking the ideas which are out there, bringing them into the market, and making the impact we need. That's a great intro into the next question. We're going to start on this topic of purpose-driven in entrepreneurship. Anka, why a purpose-driven approach?
Oh, good question. On the top of my head, firstly, because it is necessary to shift from defensive measures and short-term goals to a sustainable, inclusive growth agenda in all sectors and industries. Let me walk you through it. So making a dent in the universe or solving global challenges requires a ton of hard work, the same as in research. And our audience here might likely relate to that, because we have so many researchers at the Marie-Curie in this amazing alumni community. In entrepreneurship, it also involves countless risks, setbacks, and restarts. While some people are lucky in starting a venture, most success stories require recovering one more time, facing the challenge, and begin again, over and over. While in innovation, we talk about MVP, or the so-called minimum viable product, in purpose-driven entrepreneurship, we talk about MTP, which is massively transformative purpose. The process involves getting clarity on your MTP, having a good idea that feels true for you, on how to solve a problem, and the emotional energy that powers it. A massively transformative purpose is central to a purpose-driven mindset. Sounds quite easy, right? Well, EIT Alumni empowers people who are driven by the MTP and equips them with tools to change the world, as I mentioned before. A single individual, in my perspective, driven by a purpose can change the world. Imagine what you can do in a team. What about a network, right?
That's great. I love this MTP, massively transformative process. That's great. I guess, we had a little bit this introduction in the beginning. We're all kind of here. We want to save the world. I'm the same as well. I actually come from the mobility sector, and I work in innovation and mobility. And my big drive is, how do we decarbonize the transport sector? This is very much in line with what you want to do. So can you talk a bit about, we have this entrepreneurship, we know we have to have the research, we've got these highline targets and everything, but why is this purpose-driven? Why do we have to be thinking about purpose-driven entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship is, at the end of the day, about making money. So how do we marry these two things? And why is it so important now? And especially for the future, and especially for EIT Alumni, which you represent, Anka?
Fantastic question, Anna. And yes, thank you so much for introducing also the part of your background. I know that's so relevant. And I'm so happy actually you asked this. So let me put it this way. As an entrepreneur, you increasingly focus your capabilities and resources on creating solutions that transform whole markets and industries. In contrast with profit-driven entrepreneurship, purpose-driven entrepreneurship seeks to provide a hopeful, compelling, and abundant future for humanity. A recent study actually shows that entrepreneurs reported a higher motivation to live a meaningful life and view entrepreneurship as hopeful for solving societal problems, as well as helpful to this extent. So EIT Alumni seeks to inspire and guide entrepreneurs on their purpose-driven entrepreneurial journey by leveraging a global network. As future decision makers, as I initially said, we believe that entrepreneurs shall live a passion-driven life and know that purpose powered by emotion is the fuel to inspire and to implement this so-called innovation moonshots. I will give you an example. So a good one, it's actually the COVID pandemic, when not only business leaders such as Bill Gates or Fred Smith, the CEO of FedEx, but scientists, politicians, and the civil society worked together and developed a wide range of solutions which kept the world running and the economy moving forward while tackling a global crisis. Thus, when we do meet the next challenge, purpose-driven entrepreneurs will be resilient, adaptable, and stakeholder-centered. The silver lining of the pandemic, in my opinion, were two things here. The hope we regain in humanity by all the collective action which knew no borders and had no gender, religion, or race. And I know, Anna, that you're going to like this because you're with women at EIT. And it has been a tremendous success. We need to accept that. And secondly, the surge of innovation. Now we only need to figure out how to govern it meaningfully.
That's really interesting. So the COVID pandemic, it's a really interesting one. It's one of, these black swans that has kind of, it's changed our way of thinking about things and tackle things in a new way. And it has its positive sides as well. I mean, even if you're thinking about innovation, entrepreneurship, I've read also a lot about how in running their businesses during the COVID pandemic, because they've had other things to do at the same time. So it's not necessarily always going to be a great thing, but it has accelerated innovation, we see. I mean, it's definitely a good example, but maybe you can tell us also about a bad example that you could see.
Oh, absolutely. I just hope I'm not going to go into the
polemic. You can hear me.
Yes, we can. So a bad example, as you asked me, I would say it's the Metaverse, maybe. So
hello?
We can hear you all right? Could anyone text Anna just to let her know that it works? Thank you. So I'm going to answer a question on the bad example. So in my opinion, the Metaverse is a contrary example of the purpose-driven entrepreneurship. That's just my opinion about it. So the big question would be, what about the Metaverse goes hand in hand with sustainability? Does it go hand in hand with resilience? Does it really go hand in hand with the moonshots, right? And I would like to emphasize two perspectives here. One regarding the SDGs and one regarding with my field of expertise, which is global health. We don't want to go from COVID pandemic to a mental health epidemic. But you know what? We're almost there. There's no new normal, but next normal. The future of work, the future of food, the future of health, the future of business. It's all about creating customized solutions, which is exactly what we need in general. Personalization, customization. But are we really solving any problems in or with the Metaverse? Don't get me wrong. I am a big admirer of the NFTs and new art, and it's fantastic and an absolute progress for creative arts on one hand. But living in the Metaverse, just because the technology makes it possible to some of us, while the planet is on fire and people oscillate between burnout, anxiety, and depression, how is that an innovation moonshot? You get me? So 100 points for the creativity on this one, and 0 for fueling an inequitable future and more digital divide in this real world. The irony here is that it's not about going to Mars anymore either. It's progress and groundbreaking discovery, absolutely. However, innovation moonshots shall be about pursuing meaningful action on Earth and doing something purposeful for this planet and our habitat. And this should have happened about yesterday. So this is my reasoning behind the answer of the bad example.
I mean, that's really interesting. I actually am going to follow up a little bit on this, because I think, and maybe also hear what you other two think about this before we go into a bit more of your background. But this issue of like having the sustainability agenda, we have, you know, the climate crisis, which is it's something that is driving us. That is what is driving the innovation and then the entrepreneurship in terms of like that purpose towards something. And it's often put in contrast to, you know, profit-driven entrepreneurship. And this is something obviously that we want to make money. We have to make money out of this. Are these two things in contrast to each other, and how can we work on them together? I mean, that's in the context of what you've already talked about a bit, but maybe interesting to look at that question a bit. And if either of the other two of you have something to say about that, you're very welcome.
I don't only think that, I mean, they have to go hand to hand. You were starting your conversation speaking about the light entering your window. And I remember a guy, he was cleaning the windows, very happy. And it was like, why are you so happy? You're cleaning a window. And he said, I'm letting more light enter into the life of the people that are working inside. So is he doing a bad job? No, he isn't. He's doing a good job. And in terms of profit, he's being profitable for the company. But this purpose is making him do things in a better way. So that's the same thing applied to the whole company. So you can talk about companies having a purpose, and you can also talk about people having a purpose to and being truly aligned. And I think that business, the way business is done today, is changing radically. So it's not just about creating profit, but doing good for the world. And that's in fact what not only customers are demanding, but the whole society is demanding. There's no other way to do business, and people that are still doing the business in this way, just looking at the profit, it's just a short-term strategy. You have to look in the long term. Your business has to be sustainable.
It's a brilliant answer. I love that example. Anke, you had something to add there as well.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I'm with Christina on the same page here. I just wanted to add up that the old systems proved us that they don't work anymore. And this is what struck us, you know, a bit before the pandemic, mostly during the pandemic, and now after that. And then we're talking about social security. We're talking about new economies. We're talking so much about these trendy topics, which in the beginning, they were just, you know, buzzwords. And everything struck us all together. And now we want to do something. The thing in business right now is that we need evidence that shows us how we better respond, not only the challenges, but the needs of the people the businesses serve. So this is the mindset that is changing, I think, in the entrepreneurial world, and the entrepreneurs of today, but most importantly of tomorrow, have this kind of mindset, which gives us the hope that at the society level, we're going to move forward. At least it gives me the hope.
Mm-hmm. That's brilliant. It's so interesting. Do you have anything you'd like to add in there as well, Selena, or should we just wait for you?
I definitely agree with Christina and Anka, but the only thing maybe that is missing, don't get me wrong with this phrasing, but sooner or later we could monetize also social and environmental impact to have a return of investments in also those sectors, and this will be maybe the turning point of companies, the biggest one, because we know startups are always focusing on just impact, and they are definitely purpose driven, but when big companies will realize that also social and environmental impact are important as well as profit itself, then yeah, something will change for sure.
Mm. No, that's interesting that maybe it's easier in the entrepreneurial mindset to be working towards this within an innovation system within a larger company. Interesting point. I just a couple of messages from the chat here that some good points that you've been well spoken on the metaverse there, Anka, and some great words about Christina, that you're putting the action into your world as well. I just remind you, if you have any questions or you want to join the conversation, you can put that into the chat and we can include that in the conversation. We move a little bit on from this. I want to hear a bit more from Christina. You're an engineer, you're an entrepreneur, you're a woman in a very male-dominated industry. And I'd like to hear a bit about your company, Bound for Blue. But first of all, maybe, tell us a bit about what you were thinking when you were a child. What was it you wanted to do then? And how maybe does that person see your journey towards working in this male-dominated industry that is not designed from you? So if we can take a bit on that topic.
My destiny, when I was a child, was not studying engineering at all. I wanted to be a doctor. I spent so many times in hospitals with my family that I thought the only way of doing good was becoming a doctor. I saw on a daily basis how they saved lives, and it was like, wow, I want to do something like that in the future. But I never realize that I could be an engineer until I had a role model. So I saw that my mathematician professor was an engineer also, and she explained me that I could too, and she explained me the different possibilities and how engineering could also offer infinite possibilities to really solve the most pressing challenges. So that was what I did. I studied aeronautical engineering. Then I decided, because that's how I am, to really apply my knowledge in a radical different industry, naval industry, the shipping global industry. And the path has not been easy, but when you see what we've achieved, the technologies we've installed, the impact that it's generating, and that these can be applied to nearly 80% of the global fleet, and the impact in terms of emissions reduction and fuel reduction, it really pays off.
That's brilliant, and of course you are a role model for others today. So that's it's great to have you there, and I know you take that role a lot in the EIT communities as well. And it'd be great to hear a bit about your company as well. You've mentioned that you're in the shipping naval industry. So what is it your company does?
We're bringing sales back to shipping again, but in this case, it's not traditional sales made of soft clothing, not like the ones the pirates used, but it's more similar to an airplane wing. So it's a rigid sail. It has an aeronautical profile. It generates a very high lift coefficient. So if we're talking about traditional sails, like around 1.2 of lift coefficient, we're giving like around 6 times more lift coefficient, which translates into a bigger thrust. So this thrust is used to propel the vessel, and by propelling it, we are reducing the fuel consumption of the engine needed, and thus the fuel consumption. It's like in normal transportation, you have hybrid cars. We are like hybridization of the shipping industry. So we're putting like another engine, but it's renewable. We're using wind as fuel, which is available, it's free, it's sustainable, you don't need to store it on board, and that's the solution we're applying to really reduce the fuel consumption of vessels and reduce their polluted emissions.
And it's such an important industry where there's the potential for huge impact as well. Can you say a little bit about your journey in working in purpose-driven leadership? Because I mean, that's where you are now. So how has that been?
When I finished my career, aeronautical engineering, I thought that I had many possibilities, because education really offers you so many possibilities, and the thing was choosing my path. And I really did not see my path in a big consultancy company, or in an airline, or whatsoever, because I really didn't see that there was a why behind. So why am I doing this? I'm doing this for money, which is very extrinsic. Am I doing this to grow, which is a better way, or am I doing this for a better purpose? So as an engineer, you always come with crazy ideas, you see problems, and you always are like designing things. And that's what we saw. We saw there was a problem. We saw that with our knowledge in the aeronautical industry, we could offer a very good solution. And without thinking it very much, we started working. And the same way that I think that organizations have to be driven by purpose, like Anka mentioned, I think that people also have to be driven by this purpose. And I think that my purpose is really, I found it later on with this mathematics professor, really applying my knowledge and really in the technical side, really solving the problems with technology, and that is how I do it. If there is technology, that's where I am solving these problems. So in this sense, I think that it's, just to conclude, like, people being moved by this purpose, and this purpose really drives the overall whole organization and the way things are made. So you were talking later, you were talking about being like a role model. I think that people itself, if you really work with this purpose, you can be a role model too. So the same guy that was cleaning the windows, it's being also a role model for the people that is seeing how the things are being done. So this can drive a huge revolution, not only in the overall organization, but like in the world itself.
Mm. Yeah, it's really interesting. And I guess also because as your company has grown, you've also hired other people. So you're thinking about how they can have their purpose. Is that something you think a lot about and discuss with people who you're bringing into the company, about how their interest and their purpose matches with what you want to do in the company?
Yeah, sure. I think that it has to be this way. So we have people like, they're really concerned about climate change, and their purpose in life is to reduce the climate impact whatsoever the way. So it could be in shipping, it could be in any other industry, but like the main purpose is this one. We have people very concerned about not only sustainability issues, but about generating quality work, that is of high quality. So we are able to generate good industries, to generate wealth, and that is translated also into society. So there are different views about people working at Bound for Blue, and every one of us has their own personal story and journey. And I think all of the really personal purposes are very aligned with the overall global purpose of the company, and I think that there's no other way for people to really grow personally in companies if they don't match their purpose with the purpose of the company, because maybe this can work in like 1 year, 2 years, but then we're seeing a lot of people leaving companies, and that's because there's no purpose behind, or both purposes are really not aligned. If you're only looking about generating profit, but you're not generating a good impact in the world in terms of jobs, in terms of climate, in terms of whatever, then the people realize, and then that's we go back to the why are you doing what you are doing. So why are companies doing what they're doing, and why people are working there, and you at some point really realize why am I here, and then you have huge talent going away companies and so on. So obviously it's necessary that people are really aligned with purpose, and all of us have different purposes, but I think are very similar in terms of where we want to arrive.
And I think it also links very closely to the overall conference topic about the post-pandemic workplace as well, because now we're seeing that a lot of people are changing jobs because they see a different way of working, and they want to involve themselves in different ways. It's also about work-life balance, but in terms of like being somewhere where they can have their purpose and they can bring in something. I see you nodding a lot, Anka. I don't know if you want to make a couple of comments on this issue as well.
I think we don't have time to go so deep in all the thoughts, but I just wanted to add maybe that being purpose-driven, beyond being ethical driven and morally driven, what we see in this behavioral changes of the new entrepreneurs, it's exactly the point that Christina mentioned. It's also about the businesses being purpose-driven, not only in the impact that they are creating to the planet and to the humanity, but in the way they run their businesses. And this is why purpose-driven leadership, it's so important, because you need to trust your company, you need to be happy there. And this brings me back to your previous question, Anna. How do we balance profit-driven and purpose-driven? And again, it's exactly like that. It doesn't work anymore to say, well, I'm going to take this job because it pays off so well, and then in 2 months you get burnout. And we know that there are so many cases, and we have, again, the example of the pandemic and what happened in the hospital setting in terms of burnout. And no matter how much money was on the table, people were not going to take the jobs anymore if the organization was not promoting a culture for the employees, something that was able to actually support them in their purpose-driven journey, regardless if that is cleaning windows. Perfect example, Christina. That's so good, because it makes the person happy when it goes back home. And maybe just making a relation, with the researchers who are with us here today in this conference. I think that we need to shift also a little bit the mindset. And whereas businesses and new entrepreneurs understand the importance of bringing the evidence into new business models and respond to the needs of the society, respond to the needs of personalized solutions that the people are demanding now, and the standard is so high, the researchers need to, and I know Christina has a very good example of that, she's an engineer and she's studying business now. I know this, and I think there's a very good point she could add on that. I mean, I would love to hear it, and I would love for her to share it with the audience. There's this shift in which all the stakeholders must work together, because it proved us, the history of the recent years, I would say, proved us that it doesn't work otherwise. It basically doesn't work otherwise. So we need to bring everybody to the same table, and we need to create a solution that works for the specific needs of each stakeholder.
That's really interesting. I don't know if you wanted to add anything on that, Christina.
Yeah, well, the reason why I studied some business and make business courses, I'm just finishing. I'm about 2 weekends to finish my master in business administration, so I'm closing my fingers here. So the thing is, it's not just about generating technology, which that's the problem. If you start from R&D or university, you think that technology is the only thing that matters. And that was a problem we encountered at the beginning. We designed the best technology with the best efficiency. We even realized if that was what really the market needed, if that was the cost they were really willing to pay, how should we grow? How should we scale? Is this going to be able to be mass produced, so we are able to get to as much installations as possible in minimum time, get major impact? And that was like one of the reasons, like, hey, you really have to study business. And even you're not going to be, or I'm not going to be the best one in business, I think, but at least I think I'm going to really be able to be also the bridge between the technicians and the people that are more on the business side that don't understand both views. But I have both views. Maybe I'm not the best technician, engineer, maybe I'm not the best in business, but I can make these cross-sectional intersections between people, and between, like we were mentioning before. So we have Celine from the university side, we have Anka, so we have like more the ecosystem, and I'm like more in the entrepreneurial side. So it's about bridging these gaps that we have between each other. And business, of course, if you have the technical side, it's very, very much needed. Even though you're not going to be working on the business side, you need to have this perspective, because if not, you're not able to generate impact, even though you want, and you think, what's the problem if my technology is the best? Why no one wants it, or why isn't it working the way I thought? So I think that's necessary, not only as entrepreneurs, but also as researchers.
Yeah, I mean, having the best technology, you're right. It's not necessarily the key to being successful. I often, in a previous job when we were developing innovation that we're going to market, we were talking a lot about VHS versus beta, and the best technology lost, basically, is the summary on that discussion, because there's so much else involved. And as you so rightly say, this common thing about, if you want to go far and you make the impact, you go together, and if you want to go fast, you go alone. So it's that kind of thing, the importance of collaboration and understanding the different elements of the ecosystem and how to do that together. And so we're going to come into another part of the ecosystem here now, a bit more the research side of things. Selena, you've been very quiet, but I'm very happy to hear from you now. You are you're in the EIT Climate Kick Alumni board, but you're also a researcher. And you're looking at, this probably the gap between, what is the high level strategy, where we want to go. We all know that, we need to decarbonize, there's these targets out there. And then what's happening, that the individual action that's maybe not happening at the same rate. You can probably explain it a bit more to me. So a little bit about your research and where it is and how it plays a role in this discussion as well.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. I really think that my story is pretty close to Christina, because I decided to change my study pathways after I try entrepreneurship for a while. So I create these startups that was willing to create wastewater treatment for developing countries. And then during the development, we had a good business model, a good technology, but then we were thinking about doing some actual social impact, but we didn't know anything about it. And I was really struggling to understand why people should use our technology and why they should change their way of treat wastewater. And then this PhD came up to me, and I was like, okay, I should study behavioral change, and this is what I'm doing right now, which is something that is missing between all our society aspects. So we have industries, we have policymakers, and we have academia, and they all together develop really nice frameworks and strategies. Like European Union, we know, has climate kick, and as actually EIT member, we know that the effort to create and develop new things to bring us to a bright future are many. But if people, like real people, doesn't answer to our inputs, how we can really make an impact and completely change our way of living and mindset and so on. So yeah, this basically it's my field of study right now. Study this gap between create and actually act the change. Okay. So not really many findings right now. I'm just walking this way and try to understand better. But one really important thing is that we have to really take into consideration citizens, because they are the ones that lives our technologies. So if you have citizens on your side, then you can really create something different. And for example, we are using this new framework, this new way of co-create and co-design innovation, which is citizen science. So you can try to involve citizens in all the stages of research and of product development and everything. Like, for example, you can start co-create a project with citizens, and then go further with data development, data collection with them, and then also you can do the proof of concept of projects and everything and products with citizens, and which is the change that you can expect from these activities, that actually people will be more willing to actually get this change and impact together, and not just because you are giving them a nice product which costs less, but it's more on that they create that, and they actually feel that it's them. It's like their property and their energy and their life. So yeah, this is what we are trying to develop, a new framework that taking into consideration all the aspects of our society, the industry part, the academia, and the society. Yeah.
This is so interesting. There's so much you can discuss in this topic of getting individuals involved citizens involved in science and things. Do you see any problems with that if the purpose of the citizens is not aligned with what is happening with the, goals. If we're talking about, climate change, which you're working on, maybe people don't want to change their behavior, and you're thinking about, well, how can we do that? And they're like, well, I want to eat meat, and I want to drive my car everywhere, and I want to fly on holiday 3 times a year. I mean, is that problematic, do you think? That's a bit of a difficult question, I know, but interesting.
Yeah, it is. No, okay. As I mentioned before, actually before I was telling like people, I was using society as keywords. But you, Anna, use the better word, which is individuals. So when you are thinking about a project, you are designing a strategy or whatever, something really innovative, and you think about society, like I want to change the mobility into a city, but then you have to take into consideration all the different individuals in the city. So you cannot just think about them as a as a cluster. You have to take each citizen in their daily life. For example, you have to take into consideration elderly people or kids or young students, and how they move, where they want to go. And then from this point, you can start to build a change maker strategy on mobility in your city. Okay, so we always talk about underrepresented people, because usually when project managers create a new project, they have this ideal person in mind, like the person that wants to change, the person that is aware of climate change, and that maybe it's study, and sometimes usually is a white person. But it's not like that. Our society is so different, and we have so many different mindset and so many different backgrounds and story. So you should start from that point, from diversity, and then build from that on. So yeah, and like a really relevant role right now, for sure, women, they have a really relevant role, because, for example, we I don't want to talk for all of us, but actually we are all women here. We have such a different point of view on development and on care of our world. We have sometimes we are struggling with our path towards success, and we really know what means do whatever we need to achieve some really strong impact. So women should be taken into more consideration than before, and yeah, also other underrepresented people. But I'm a woman. I want to highlight this.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I take from what you're saying is the need for diversity in all different levels, and I mean, especially engaging with the different levels of society. We talk a little bit about quadruple Helix Innovation Systems as well, which is something that comes up more and more in these discussions about involving different kind of stakeholders. What is the role in this collective action? So you're looking a lot about, the citizen engagement, but it's within a wider ecosystem. So what is that role there?
Yeah, this is a new framework, because usually innovation was driven by triple helix innovation, who involved basically just industry and policymakers in science and technology. But nowadays, the fourth part of the helix is started to engage more the society, as I mentioned before. So it's not just a fourth part of this innovation pathway, but it's more something that needs to be completely involved from the beginning of processes then until the end of processes. So it's a kind of new mindset that probably businessmen and industries and policymakers in general should take in and make them make their projects getting like starting point from the society on. So this is a new framework that is coming up lately, and actually EIT it's using this maybe without any no, for sure everyone was already studying this, but we have this triangle of innovation and knowledge, which tries to involve all this part of society. And the last thing that I want to mention is that even though we think about industry as an identity or business as an identity itself and innovation as well, but all of those parts are made of people. So societies is already involved, and when we work on a new project, we don't just have to think about, oh yeah, this is my company developing something, but it's just me. So society is for sure involved because you are part of it. And yeah, so this is my key point.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point about, and also thinking of, at the end of the day, it's individuals that are involved. And like the other two, Christina and Anka, you also mentioned that in different ways. You know, Christina, about bringing the purpose for individuals in line with the purpose of an overall company, but also Anka talking about the move towards customization and thinking about how you work with individuals. I mean, do you also see this shift from your perspectives of moving towards this quadruple helix, and it also makes it more complex, right? Because then you're bringing in more actors in. You know, how do you create a business and still thinking about, you know, society at the end of it, and involving the different areas here? I don't know if you've got anything to say on that.
Sorry, I can take it. Are you asking about the stakeholder engagement?
Yeah.
Right. So, well, there are many ways that people have tested for years, but most importantly, in the recent years, as Helene also said, there has been a extreme effort towards bringing the people to the same table in order to co-create. I put it in the chat right now because I love that a lot. In healthcare, actually, we use the same model as Helene said for the citizen science. We call that patient-led innovation, and it's co-creating with the patient. It's not the fact that the solutions for the patient should come from the lab, but they should come from the bedside to the lab and back to the bedside. So this is the kind of mentality that we want to see, for example, in healthcare. And I think that this kind of model is easily translated also into the other fields of sustainability, of building sustainability and resilience, and an impactful, however, inclusive agenda. Because you, Anna, and also Selene mentioned this very important point, which is about equity and diversity and inclusion. And I know, again, it sounds like buzzwords because in the past year, that's all we've been hearing about. Again, from my field of expertise, bringing all stakeholders to the table, it brings us to a very important question. When we're designing these new solutions, and say we do everything right, say we are co-designing these solutions with the patients and with the doctors, let's not forget them. They are doing this kind of things, and they shift mentalities, they shift skill sets, they do so many extraordinary things beyond it. And Christina just gave us her example of being an engineer, and she felt the need to learn about business so that she can balance these things. So when we're sitting at a table with them and we're discussing about this, I'm always saying two things. So first of all is design a solution, regardless if it's technological, if it's digital, if it's however you want to call it. Think one thing in healthcare, again, we are all going to be patients. We are all patients, and we are all going to be patients. So when you are designing it, and when you think about it as if it would be for you. And I think this is the first key point here. And when all stakeholders understand this, they can actually foster the engagement that the business needs in the end. And they can share knowledge, they can share skills, they can shift skills. And secondly, the second thing is that if we design solutions and breakthrough technologies that are able to change the world, it's normal in business. And Selene also mentioned this in a different way. It's normal to create a user persona, because this is how the business is going to work. You need to have a model, you need to develop the model, you need to create your revenue streams, you need to make sure that you're following on a path that is going to prove to you that your business is financially sustainable, so that you can actually reach your impact. However, if your solution does tackle just this user persona on a long term and is not actually tackling equity, diversity, and inclusion, are you really making the impact that you're willing to? I will leave it as an open question. So I think this is something, as I said before, that can be easily translated from healthcare to citizen science to climate change to innovative energies. And we have this amazing examples at EIT, because we have 9 kicks, as we call them. Actually, we're very proud of the last one. KICS is actually an acronym for knowledge and innovation communities, and we are actually driving cross-sectoral for innovation and entrepreneurship for the bright minds and big hearts, as I said in the beginning. From health to climate to inner energy, raw materials, manufacturing, food, and it's fantastic, right? So this is how you actually change things, and it takes time. It takes time. This is not something that it's gonna happen today. It's not maybe gonna happen tomorrow either, and it needs persistence. But again, as in healthcare, we say, the model move fast and break things doesn't work. In other fields, it does, but in healthcare, it doesn't. So, you need to be cautious. You need to take the right steps. But most importantly, you need to equip yourself with the right people. And I think this is the driving force behind all of it. And I think we lost Anna for a second. And I was not about to continue on my narrative here. But what do you think about this, Christina?
In our case, when Selena was speaking, it was like, yeah, we are a B2B business, and sometimes it's difficult to see really society there. But in the end, people that are inside the company deciding if they're going to take a technology or not, or change the direction on how business is being made inside their company, is the society, in fact. So it was, and that brings me to my original point, and it's like they have their own purpose, and obviously they want a more sustainable future, not only for them, but for their kids and for everyone that will be there later when they are not in this world. And then another way of how society is involved in B2B businesses, in the end, for instance, in the shipping industry, we all benefit from these goods being moved. And we are the decision makers too, because we're seeing IKEA, which is making a huge commitment in terms of sustainability, because their clients are really pushing towards this sustainability too. So it's not just about what they can do by offering more sustainable solutions as IKEA, but how can they transport the materials, the products, and so on. So they're really pushing also ship owners, ship operators to really be more sustainable, and even pushing harder than International Maritime Organization regulations, which is very interesting to see. And this really brings to Selene's point, the power of society, which I think it has not been left aside in the triple helix. I think we really did not consider that it was inside all of them and how we could leverage more their power, maybe. But in the end, they have, or we as a society have a lot of power, and we can see this in B2B businesses too.
I'm wondering if Anna got the chance to log back with us. Otherwise, actually, I don't want to take the floor on moderating this, but I'm super curious to know from Selene, actually, if she thinks if purpose-driven entrepreneurship would solve the SDGs. What do you think?
Yeah. Thank you, Anka. This is a huge question, actually. Yeah, for sure, the purpose-driven businesses can have, and for sure will have, a strong impact on SDGs, because without it, we cannot solve any of the problems. I'm thinking about like SDG 6, that was my favorite one. I wouldn't call it favorite, but the ones that got me more involved with my startup. And for sure, without businesses that are trying really hard to push towards a shift of mindset, and trying to develop breakthrough technologies to solve one of those, then this is not possible. But also, I really believe that that businesses should work with the academia as well, because sometimes we see those two words really really separate. They don't talk with each other. Maybe there is a huge problem of IP, for example, sometimes, or sometimes there is how do you call in business, that you don't want to talk about your new product because it's coming up soon and you want to be the first on the market, and so on. But for sure, if we work together, and we try to find again a return of investment, but on social impact and on environmental impact, then we will make a huge change on SDGs, for sure.
I also believe so. Selene, just to continue on what you started, I think that the purpose-driven mindset has a broader view on the resilience agenda, and it actually encompasses designing strategies and structures, and at the same time for flexibility, but also for speed. So from my point of view, this purpose-driven entrepreneurship, it's probably one of the very few ways forward to tackle the SDGs and to have a future whatsoever in general, because we're all asking ourselves this question these days, and in the light of the past events as well. So I think this concept never underestimates the power of need-led innovation and the public-private partnerships, which we put in a different word as strategic stakeholder engagement to this extent. But you mentioned, Selene, how the academia should come closer with the industry. And not only, I would add to this also with the policy, so there's a point when you say, well, the politicians or the policymakers need to listen to the evidence. Again, we saw what happened in the pandemic. And I can tell you from my experience, before that, I have friends who are epidemiologists, and I specialize in public health, and I have been working in the field with health systems and healthcare services for almost a decade now. And I have friends that are epidemiologists. And before the pandemic, we have been talking, and this goes closely related with the topic of the conference, the post-pandemic workplace. They had a hard time finding jobs, and this is the reality. We cannot hide behind the fingers. When you graduate medicine, and maybe Christina has also some kind of experiences in that. She mentioned her family are in the healthcare business, how I like to call it lately, because it's a business also. But, they graduated and they were not directed, to go and take this specialization in epidemiology, because you knew that there are just several options they would have when they graduate. It's not the same when you say, well, I'm just going to be a doctor. Well, that's a thing, but you need to find a very clear specialty. And then you have the systems in medicine, when you know that if you're going to be a gynecologist or an ophthalmologist or a cardiologist, you're going to be quite lucky. So you're fighting for those places. Whereas if you're going to be a doctor, but an epidemiological doctor, so not the bachelor of the 3 years, but really like the doctoral specialization, then you ask yourself, well, doing biostatistics, I love it, but where am I going to work? And what happened? Well, the pandemic happened. And everybody was looking for epidemiologists. But nobody thought about creating them and preparing for what could come. So we are always kind of reactive to everything that's happening around us instead of being proactive. So developing these public-private partnerships, I think it would give us the, as I said before, the broad view of the resilience agenda. It's going to bring us the evidence from research and from the science and from the universities. It's going to be to bring us the experience and the know-how of the industry, these tangible things that we all need to understand at the point of making profit, because otherwise the business model is not going to be financially sustainable. But then there's the policy making, which needs to listen and needs to find the right ways and mechanisms to implement everything that it has been discussed. And this is why I think it's also a very good way to move forward, having these public-private partnerships.
Yeah, I'm back again. I've deleted all the cookies from my browser, and then it allowed me to share my camera again. Gremlins in the mix. This brilliant. We actually have to round up now because we've come to the end of our session. I actually think we could have continued the discussion. It was just getting going, I think. So we hopefully will find more opportunities and hopefully also meet in person where we can continue these discussions. I think what we were getting into there at the end, Anka, about, actually the role of innovation and entrepreneurship in thinking a bit more long-sighted, that you need to be thinking about, the purpose and the impact that you want on society contra, the short-term profit-driven, that you're always going to have this difficulty in there. It's a topic for next year's session, maybe. So I'll round up there because we're 3 minutes over. But thank you so much to all of you. Excellent input, really good discussions. I've really enjoyed this session with you all, and especially to Anka, who's organised this session, and also to the conference for having us here. So I'll close the session now. Thank you so much, and thank you to those who listened. And do get in touch with any of us if you want to continue the discussion. Brilliant. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much, Anna, for moderating and for your interest, girls. So inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Stay connected. Bye.